What is conscious design?
Conscious design is, if you imagine taking human-centered design and sustainability and social social consciousness, so being aware of the social impact and putting it all into one thing, and really looking at it is really just taking a step farther back on especially tangible products, because they make the most impact to us, our environment, the planet, our social experience even. And so the whole point of conscious design is to take an extra step back and say, what are all the impact points? How does this product that we're trying to create impact us environmentally? How does it impact us socially? How does it impact us financially? How does it really impact, and the supply chain, not just you. It's from the time a raw material is gotten somewhere. It's typically mined, or it's planted and grown and harvested. It comes from somewhere. And there's a lot of people that touch that product in some way, and people don't think about that even today as much as I think people should. And there's a great example. I think it's the Ticonderoga pencil. People think of it, right? It's a 4 pieces. It's an eraser, a metal band, the wood, and the actual lead. And it comes from like 4 different countries, and it passes through like 10 or something just to get to you. And it's like 100 people are involved to make one pencil. And so that's something that we kind of, and being in the design world, we brush aside. We're like, oh, well, don't worry about that. There's too much to think about. And in today's world, I don't think that we can just ignore it. And so that's conscious design, is trying to pull all of those elements together and say, hey, let's actually think about what we're doing here, start to finish, the cradle to cradle or cradle to grave, whichever one. But let's think about those things. Let's make some decisions early on and make it happen in a way that we want to, and realizing that it should be a conscious decision. When you go to design something, don't just let it happen. It's going to happen no matter what, but be conscious about it.
So is there not a potential risk there of you get, because it'd be quite easy to almost take any product, I guess, and, go back through that supply chain element and almost become paralyzed by fear of doing something wrong. How do we step people through? Because you don't want that paralysis, but like you say, you want to be thoughtful about the impact that you're having and what you're doing. How do we make sure that people can actually progress with developing and design and developing what they're doing, and not just either throw everything away because it's too difficult or just ignore it completely?
Well, I think the key is actually word you use, progress. It's not... There's an expectation, because we live in an instant world, right? I expect to instantly be able to message people, instantly be able to buy things. Amazon can get stuff to you in a day or two, right? We live in this very moment-based reality. And so the way to work through that is that it is a process. You're not going to launch a product, even today. I would say, even if you had an unlimited budget, the idea that you could launch a perfectly perfect product that had 0 negative impacts to anyone, only positive across the entire supply chain, it's not possible today. Yeah. It's that is I wouldn't call it a pipe dream, because it's possible, but it is a ways away from being real. Yeah. And so I think it's not to overwhelm, it's to go, okay, well, how do we break down all of these different impacts? How do we break down the supply chain and start somewhere? And I think that's the biggest thing, is that people do get, what you said, people do get afraid, like, oh, well, I'm overwhelmed. Like, this is too much. And that's kind of what we've done. We've been overwhelmed. And so we ignore it. And that's not working. That's not working out for anybody at all. And so breaking it down and just going through systematically, and even creating a roadmap of, okay, well, these are our goals, and we're going to get there. And even, I was just talking to someone about Apple. If you look at over the last decade, Apple set some insanely lofty goals for their sustainability.
Yeah.
And a decade ago, people were like, oh, you're crazy. Well, they've been working on it slowly year by year. And a decade later, they just did a presentation. Some of those things on their list, because they've been showing the same list for 10 years,
Yeah.
some of them have been checked off. So, and that's Apple. They have billions of dollars. They're able to put a lot of resources toward it. So it's really just creating that process and going through the steps of aiming towards it. Because if we don't ever start to aim towards it, we'll never get there. If we don't start the journey. So
yeah,
it's a process.
and you're right. Yeah, okay. Companies like Apple are minted, and smaller companies aren't. But the process is the same. We're not going to get anywhere unless you've got the ambition to do so. And if I guess as much of that is about setting up the right, the right leadership, the right foundation of the business to say, right, we are going to have this product. It is going to be a sustainable product, and through its lifetime, people will have, people will come up with better parts of it, or either product elements or better design elements, manufacturing elements, and just being open to say, right, well, that's improved now, we can incorporate it. I guess that's where you're coming from as much as anything else.
Yeah, and I think that the other roadblock that people have still is that it's too expensive and it's not going to be financially stable, right? A lot of people, like startup companies, are like, oh, we're worried about sustainability later. Like, we just need a product to be profitable. And I think there's all that myth needs to be broken down more. It is profitable to be sustainable. It's profitable to be thinking about your employees, and things like that. It is profitable, and there's plenty of companies that are doing really good. Patagonia is one that's pretty well known for how much they do for environmental things, and they're pretty big. They're doing well. No one's complaining about their stocks.
Well, yeah.
So it's also that of it's profitable, and do it step by step. You don't need to, bury yourself with all the goals at once.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's I think that's probably a massive takeaway, isn't it? Of aim big, but it doesn't matter almost how long it takes you to get there, as long as you keep on the path. This book has brought together your work in design, but also Jessica's work as a healer and study of regenerative technologies. Jessica is your wife. How does that combination work?
It's an interesting combination because I'm very technology future forward focused as much as possible. That's where I live. I'm developing new things, and her studies have been in more, ancient Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine from India, and looking at how they thought of things. And so it brings, thinking about how people used to build things and how people used to grow things. And one of the things that we've looked at, and there's modern version, is regenerative farming and things like that, where it's using older techniques, mixing it with modern technology, and being able to produce something better. And I think there's a lot of people still kind of look backwards and they go, oh, well, we shouldn't pull any inspiration from there. It's old. Yep. And that's a very American way to do it. We bulldoze our buildings right before they hit the age where they get protected as a historic monument. And I think that, basically our combination is going, well, there's a lot of stuff to think about. There's a lot of other ways to think about things. Yeah. And when you blend that with things that we know now, quantum mechanics and, things like that, it creates a little bit of a unique standpoint, and it opens up some doors to looking at things differently. And that's kind of the point of the whole book, is look at things a little bit differently. Like, don't put the blinders on.
Cool.
And so, yeah, that's the blend.